review of literature and survey paper out of that. So the first thing is to go to IEEE Explorer. Nowadays many colleges doesn't have the IEEE Explorer access, though ideally it should have. The first thing that you should do is just check out the latest development on the topic that you are looking for. Say for instance, if you are looking for face recognition, first search in IEEE Explore about the latest trends in face recognition. When you get the search result, just scroll down a little. You'll see the publication year. Make it a little more specific, like make it a little more recent, say 1 year, or you could possibly make it a 2-year time frame in order to understand what kind of works that has been already done. Now you see certain survey papers already, say a complementary study of the evaluation of face recognition technique. You'd always feel that there are already certain survey papers already available in the domain that you are into. It's always good to refer it, assuming the fact that you do not have any access to such a Explorer. You cannot see this. Now remember, several authors, beside keeping the paper in IEEE or even Springer, they also keep it in their own college websites, on their personal websites, without really with the watermark of the college. So Google Scholar, remember Google Scholar has a free access to all of these sites. So first thing that you should do is just get started with scholar.google.com. Take down the address. It's scholar.google.com. Here I'm in India, so it's scholar.google.co.in. Now my objective is to get this paper, so I'll be searching this paper and I'll see if this is available through open access or not. Even if it is not, you're definitely bound to get certain free access. There'll be certain papers which will be available in the free access. If you do not get this, just try to minimize your search. Now you can see you invariably get to see the results, and this also shows you the time frame. You could check out the time frame. So you get a lot of paper, but which so I'm going to change the search term a little bit more, just coming down to face recognition survey, and whichever paper that is available through open access, you'll see those links over here, and I have selected obviously but our latest paper, so the year is showing 2013, so it's a good starting point for you to start. Just open this paper. You should ideally download all these papers and have a read at it, but I'm just trying to show you what exactly does it take to start up. So whenever you are doing a survey paper, it is always better to start with something which is already there, read it, understand it, and then proceed with this. Now when you look at the survey paper, when you go deep down, you'll see that this paper has divided face recognition technique into several steps. There is pre-processing steps, feature extraction segment, feature versus appearance based approaches, motion based approaches, model based approaches, and so on. And then finally you could see that there is a table which compares all these techniques. Now when we go for face recognition technique, and if you want to build your own survey, this is a very good point for you to start up, because it will give you most of the methods, that's important. So you have at least the important techniques that what are the pre-processing steps required, what are the pre-processing steps required. So face recognition's most important pre-processing step is face detection. So face detection would also be based on color features, based on texture features, then based on AdaBoost techniques, based on the methods proposed by more like the MGOCV that we use. So you can ideally start with this technique. Then you can first figure out what exactly is you're trying to do. So you could just divide the fragment, say steps, face detection. Then you classify it, like what are the different kind of face detection techniques are there, say color based segmentation, texture based segmentation, region based segmentation, for instance AdaBoost techniques, and so on. Once the face is detected, again it's processed with two different labels, processing with grayscale and processing at the color level. Now you talk about the feature vectors. What kind of feature vectors are being commonly used? You have used LDA, then you have a paper on PCA, then you have paper on eigenvectors and all such stuff. So you should ideally make a point of that. Then you should go with the techniques like classification. So what are the different classifiers people have used? That's a neural network, support vector machine, nearest neighbor classifier. In nearest neighbor classifier also you have various distances, so Manhattan distance, chi-square distance, and so on. So once you note down this, now you have a very good idea about what exactly are the type of works that is being done. You obviously have a reference over here, but you also want to build your own repository. So as for my reference document that I build, the first thing is that I want to have a paper, significant number of papers, and I want to analyze the papers in each domain. So first I'd start with face detection. Google Scholar or IEEE Explore is your good option. Now if you are going for IEEE Explore, there is also a section called Open Access. Now you can anytime search for the papers which are open access papers if you do not have the access to it, and it's going to always show you the latest papers which are freely available. You could see that these papers are all open access papers, so you can always refresh the result to get the open access results. You'll get face detection technique, detection of psychological stress using so and so, and you should always end up getting good papers if you do not just extend your search level. Once you have gone through the initial phase of understanding what are the latest development, you should really elaborate your search and go through with several years of it. So and then the next point should be your Google Scholar. So and you should select sort by date, so you exactly understand how the latest development of face detection technique is. Method of face detection based on improved AdaBoost algorithm, generalized face quality and factor muscles, a fast face detection method combining skill, color, feature, ADA boost, real-time human face detection and tracking using cascade. So you get all the papers. You really end up getting all the papers. Now, what exactly is the importance of a survey paper? Say for instance, if I'm a researcher and I want to do a project on, do a work on face recognition technique, it's very important for me to know what has been done, what is the drawback of those techniques, why new techniques were evolved, and how I could overcome those techniques. So if you see face detection on improved ADA boost algorithm, you should ideally download this paper, go through with the techniques. The most important part is the result and the conclusion section. You should understand what exactly is this paper doing. So what is the efficiency or accuracy of the face detection? So for different users, what is the accuracy? Now if the accuracy is coming down, why it is coming down? If it is coming down, if any paper has already improved or not. So these are the important aspects that as a user know. So you could just start with making some points that you're starting with face detection, and there is a paper on ADA boost technique. Just note down the paper author's name, etc., which finally you can put in a correct review of literature format. So you can just I prefer it to be in this fashion. I make a folder basically whenever I do want to work with them, and say for instance face detection survey. What I do is I in fact prefer to save these papers just as the numbering that I'd be following. So I save them as 1, 2 in this fashion. So that makes it quite easier for me, whenever I'm working with survey or I want to survey the paper. Face detection and identification using competitive neural networks or something like this. So let me have at least 2 papers, which makes it easier for me to demonstrate you. So I'm going to save this paper. Now ideally when you start up with such reviews, you should in fact write your reference section parallelly. So write your reference section, that's like 1, and the author's name, which you can reformat later on. So prepare your reference section, then the title name, the year and where it was published. So this details is very important for you, to present. You can always reformat it. So this is the first reference, and this is also saved as paper number 1. Now you have to review it, understand its technique. You can first make a note about it, like face detection ADA boost technique. What paper number 1 highlight says. What are the gist of this paper? So in this way, paper 1, 2, 3, 4, you can make a note of it. Then you have to go about making the review of literature. So in the review of literature, what we do is, based on the points that we have noted down, the highlight of the paper, we once more note down. Now the format that we generally follow is, if there is a single author, we just specify the author name. If there are more authors, we specify tall in 1. This is the paper number, which refers to this reference. Elaborates. Then you have to go on writing what their technique is all about, then which problem they solved, how they solved, what constraint they tested their solutions under, how their solution is better than a previous work, and supported by which parameters, how, what is the result of the paper, what is the drawback. Now this is very important, because no author would like to specify in general what would be the general drawback of their paper. Few authors do mention that they could not achieve this objectivity, but most of the cases you will see that the papers should not specify this. So you have to have a general understanding, and you have to find out what exactly is the limitation of this paper. There could be a speed limitation, there could be an accuracy limitation, there could be a limitation when number of phases increases, there could be a limitation when the light intensity varies, there could be a limitation when the distance from the camera varies, or in fact the quality of the camera varies. So you have to identify them, and then you have to go about identifying which are the other papers which have worked on the similar concept. Now your basic framework will evolve around this concept. Now each of this domain that you created, which are the subparts, should create this whole review of literature. Once you are done with the review of literature, you see this paper over here which we have been following. Nicely he has divided these steps. You should go about doing the same thing. Pre-processing steps, you could write your own headers like face detection techniques, then feature extraction techniques, followed by classification techniques, and then because you are already writing down the details of these sections of the paper, you should be able to put up this table. This is a very important table to have. You see, if you are working with any survey paper, the reader would expect that you specify the approach, what exactly was the challenge then made, what was the objectivity that they satisfied, and this section of important points can further be divided into results and analysis section. So you could note down, if you can see that recognition rate is 91%, recognition rate is 99%, recognition rate is 73%. So one of the drawback of this paper is, see, as I can see from the onset, that it has not been able to put forward the recognition rate and the recognition time, the time it has taken for this many faces to be recognized, or the amount of training it had required per test set. So this drawback you can see from this paper, and in your paper you can also put up in the performance issue. You can again further divide it into several columns. You can write that amount of training data set used, the total time in recognition rate. You can further increase it, false acceptance rate, false rejection rate. So you can just make your own paper. You can give it a name of, say, comparative tables, and you can put up a nice table and work on this paper approach what problem hit solve. Then you come into the performance section. So what is the recognition rate, then false acceptance, false rejection, recognition time, training time, and so on. Then you can divide it into this section. Now similarly, if you are doing a survey on networking, you could make your paper on this techniques, paper, approach. Now performance, you can divide it in this section. What was the PDR? What was the general latency? What was the general control overhead? Packet collision. For wireless sensor network, obviously stuff like lifetime, stuff like congestion, and so on. So the objective is really to identify base paper, find out what is the a base paper should be ideally a review, a survey paper that you are looking for, and then finally you should try to focus on the areas that the survey paper has focused. You should note them down, check out few papers on that domain, try to find out the significant papers on those areas, make a note of the findings of each of these papers, prepare a comparative table, prepare the reference and the review of literature section, and then you have to put together all of them in order to make a good paper. So many of you just wonder like how to start up. So I thought that I'd give you a bit of understanding of how you exactly could start up writing a survey paper, why you should write a survey paper, easy way down. Thanks for watching the video. I hope I've been able to be clear enough to give you certain insight about making survey papers, so that is helpful to you. Thanks for watching. Thank you.